Hello to everyone in YouTube land. I'm Jack Kellum, Game Master, World Builder, and Amateur Mythologist. You can find me at Jack of Tales on Twitter. All my links are down in the description. Welcome to Of Gods and Game Masters, a channel focused on tabletop role-playing, from Dungeons & Dragons 5e to GURPS to Mutants and Masterminds. Future installments might even be about Fate or Genesis or some other system. Who knows? But throughout all of it, the main thread will be world building with a healthy side of mining myth and folklore for stories, antagonists, themes, and tropes. As you watch my videos, let me know in the comments what you want to see more of, what sorts of content you want to see me cover. If you like what I do, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Support me on Patreon, and you can get world building content, early access to scripts, actual worlds, both ready to play and in progress, pantheons I'm building, and more. If you just want to throw me a tip, put it on Ko-Fi. As a bit of background, I'm a partially disabled stay-at-home dad. I'm homeschooling my kids during this lovely pandemic. I've been playing and running games for almost 40 years. While this doesn't make me any sort of authority, it does give me a different perspective than others might have. It gives me some insight. The fact that I've played all the systems above, plus just for example, say 7th Sea, Legend of the Five Rings, every edition of D&D, Pathfinder, Villains and Vigilantes, The Original Traveler, Star Frontiers, Gam World, and even Rifts, means that I have a different perspective on game systems and world buildings than some others might. Not better, just different. I'm hugely inspired by the work of Tolkien, primarily when it comes to thoroughness. That doesn't mean my worlds are all Tolkien pastiches. I also love Ursula K. Le Guin, Roger Zelazny, and Mercedes Lackey, and more recently Shannon Maguire, Laurel K. Hamilton, and Jim Butcher. Stories come from everywhere, and I think that an important part of being good at making them, especially for role-playing games, is reading or watching a lot of them as well. I cut my teeth on Greek and Norse myth, and I never stopped searching for more. From the tales of the Amatsukami to the ancient Sumerians, you name it. Fairy tales from Grimm to Anderson and far beyond. I built systems for and settings for GURPS, for D&D, for Pathfinder, for superheroes, probably the most prolifically, those four. And for the sub-settings, like my big setting for Pathfinder and D&D, which is called Crux, I have sub-settings like Shea Cathel, which is a drow campaign. And then I have Morgravia, which is a sort of an early Victorian Eastern European horror campaign. I have others set in the same world, but it's, a bit much to go into right now. Other than that, just to check my notes here, yes, I'm working on a setting called Naliga, where the emphasis is on the interactions between goblinoids and the rest of the races. And I've written the backstory and the mythology so far from the hobgoblin point of view, and I think it gives a more nuanced look at the reasons for their animosity than something like inherent evil. Other than that, we've got a whole bunch of other settings that I work on and continue to work on, and we'll show those on the channel as we go on. Basically, this is all just here to show you where I'm coming from. I don't have any degrees. I don't have any claim to authority. What I do have is experience and maybe a useful perspective. I do my best to do quality research, but I'm bound to get some things wrong. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. We don't need specifics. We don't need scholarly level work here. We're just trying to build worlds. Interesting worlds, deep worlds. We're here to build worlds and then tell cooperative stories in them. Stories about heroes and villains and normal people trying to get by, and what the heck happened to that goblin? Why the goblin did what he did. You know, stories that most importantly focus on the characters that our players are bringing to the table and where they interact with the world you built for them to have those stories in. Sometimes you may have even built that setting with them. We'll get to that. Welcome, Game Masters. Let's talk about gods. Next up, in our first real content video, we'll have gods filing off the numbers.